Lorraine,
I'll work on it.
A ribbon cutting for the Grange.
Yeah. What? Will there be?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I have to follow
Yeah.
up. I keep emailing her and she keeps saying she's not quite ready yet. So hopefully now she's ready.
Because I saw they were open.
They're
Yeah,
open today.
yeah.
Yep.
So write
Very
myself
good
a note
food.
so I don't forget.
I can highly recommend the griddled cheese sandwiches.
Ooh.
Oh, you've already
Keep
scoped
seeing
that out.
already
pictures on
eaten there.
Larchmont. They look good.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Okay, here comes Kimberly. We're only missing Jim Stout. Justin, can you check with Jim and see where he is?
For some reason, it keeps rejoining, like dropping me off. I don't know why.
Don't take it personally.
Okay. All right.
Okay. So I think we should start, yes? Yeah. And Jim can jump in. LMC?
We're live whenever you're ready.
I know, thank you. There we go. Okay. Okay. Well, hello, good evening and welcome to the regular meeting of the Board of Trustees of the Village of Larchmont. It is Tuesday, September 15th, Election Day in the Village of Larchmont, postponed from March to now due to COVID-19. I just want to remind everyone you still have just under an hour and a half to race to the polls and put in your vote for 3 elected officials, plus to vote on the referendum to move the general election to November. I'd like the record to show that all board members are present and accounted for. We also have with us this evening Village Administrator Justin Ditino, Village Treasurer Kimberly Gutwine, and Village Attorney Jim Stout. I would like you to all join me in a well-coordinated Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance
to the
flag
Flag
of the United
of the
States
United
States
States
of America,
America,
To the Republic,
to the Republic
to the republic
for which it
for
for which it
stands,
stands,
one nation,
Under God,
under God,
indivisible.
indivisible, with liberty
liberty
and
and
justice
justice
for all.
for all.
It's
Oh my
slightly better than it
goodness.
normally is.
No, it's the thought that counts.
It is.
It's just impossible to coordinate.
No, we
our
have different
speaking.
Wi-Fi connections,
Yeah,
different
just
speeds.
impossible.
True.
So, I'm just going to pull up my agenda here. This evening, I have no announcements or appointments to committees, except to repeat one more time that today is Election Day in the Village of Larchmont, and on the ballot are the position of mayor and 2 trustee positions. I am running for re-election as well as Trustee Finelli and Trustee Bauer. And we have a referendum to move the village election from March to the date of the general election in November. If the referendum were to pass, that would take effect in 2021, which means that in this coming March, there would not be a village election. The village election would happen on general election day in November of 2021. So everyone, polls close at 9 o'clock. Voting is at the village center behind the library. Social distancing, masks, hand sanitizer, it's all there. Please come out and cast your ballot. We have this evening, first up on our agenda, a public hearing for a local law regulating the use of leaf blowers in the Village of Larchmont. So I would first like to seek a motion to open the public hearing.
So
So
moved.
moved.
And do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. I'll let Brian figure out who's first and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. So the Larchmont Environmental Committee, along with their liaison, Trustee Bauer, brought to us a suggestion to amend the village's code to ban gas-powered leaf blowers entirely in the village and restrict the use of electric-powered leaf blowers to discrete time periods within the year. As part of the process of entertaining these changes, the Environmental Committee had several experts, both on landscaping and these types of materials, but also environmentalists who spoke to us about the effect of gas-powered leaf blowers on the health of soil, and by extension, the health of birds and insects, and also on the health of people who hear the noise, breathe in the fumes, both the workers who are right on top of the equipment, as well as residents who walk past it or hear it from their homes. One of the things that we did in crafting this proposed law is we pulled it out of the noise ordinance of the village code, and we moved it into a new chapter 180 entitled leaf blowers, because we wanted to emphasize not just the noise and decibel level issues of leaf blowers, but also highlight the environmental issues that are associated with their use. I think during the COVID crisis, with everything shut down quite drastically for a period of time, and for people working from home, we all felt in a heightened way the noise, the constant noise of leaf blowers in our village. And as part of the emergency declaration that I made, I had an executive order which banned their use starting in, I think, about mid-April, and actually continues to this day, and will only resume on October 15th when village law does allow for it for the fall cleanup. But I know in the news there were a lot of stories about people being able to see the stars for the first time, and the oceans cleaning up because no ships were sailing and airplanes weren't flying. Kind of makes you think that while we each in our own lives can make tiny, tiny changes, the real change that's needed in order to deal with some of the drastic outcomes we see coming down the pike from climate change and our overuse of fossil fuels, really need to come from government, from municipalities making larger changes and from corporations making larger changes, so that we can get things back on the right track quickly enough that we don't irreparably alter our planet and our ability to live comfortably on our planet. And that's why I'm very happy to have legislation like this on the table tonight. It goes hand in glove with our previous resolution to enact a green fleet policy, which we still need to craft the specifics of, and our idea of looking at moving some of our vehicle fleet to electric or hybrid vehicles. So having now said enough, I'll turn it over to Trustee Bauer if there's anything that she wants to add and anything that she wants to key up, and then we'll see if we have, and I believe we do have some participants on the meeting who may wish to make statements and speak on this proposed law.
I'd just like to say that I really have been incredibly impressed by the Environmental Committee and all of the time and effort that they have really put into making this proposal. They've been extremely thoughtful about the way they went about it. I felt that the presentation that they did several months ago was extremely compelling, both from a health perspective and environmental perspective. And I'm very excited that the board has reached this point where we're now, considering enacting this into law.
Attendees to the meeting who are on our list, if there's anyone out there who would like to speak about this proposed law, either for or against, please raise your virtual hand and you'll be unmuted. And we'll be able to hear from you.
Mayor, this is Jim Stout. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Jim.
So my suggestion is that when you do open the public hearing, that somebody make a motion to incorporate into the record of the public hearing all of the audio, video, and written materials you received on this topic over the course of the last 6 months in your various meetings, and they'll become part of the record here.
Okay, so since we've opened the public hearing, I'm going to make a motion to do as Attorney Stout just advised.
Moved.
Thank you. Do I have a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you. Thank you, Jim.
And I came on, I guess, you have already opened the public hearing.
We did, yes, we had
Okay,
already opened it,
thanks.
yeah. Do we have any attendees, any members of the Environmental Committee who would like to say a word here? I don't see any hands raised yet.
I believe Lisa was going to speak.
She's
Lisa
on.
McDonald? I see her on.
She's on. I'll send her a message. Okay.
Yeah.
It might be interesting. Is there anyone speaking in opposition? If not,
I hope they can hear us. It's a black hole.
I'm texting Kristen and Lisa, and I asked them if they're having trouble raising their hand or.
Okay.
Oh. Okay.
can they hear us?
Yes, Lisa can. I think Kristen's supposed to speak, but Kristen doesn't seem to be responding. So I might ask Lisa if Kristen doesn't respond, if she would mind. Oh, no, nobody has anything to say right now. Never mind. They'd like to
Okay.
speak after we vote.
Okay, so there's nobody here who wants to speak at this moment in time. I have a message. Oh, okay, thank you. All right, then I'm going to turn it over to the board. If there's anyone on the board who would like to discuss any element of this law that you know we haven't discussed before, or that they've thought differently about.
I have a comment.
Add something to it? Yep. Go ahead, Bubba.
Yep, I think it's a wonderful thing that's going to take place here. My biggest issue is the timing. I still have a problem with the dates, the start dates on both ends, in the spring and in the fall, and I'd like to discuss that.
Okay. So I would say go right ahead, but for the sake of those who are listening and haven't pulled up our documents from the website, the operation times for the electric leaf blowers would be for the month of April in the spring, and then October 15 through December 15 for the fall cleanup.
And that April 1st runs for how long?
It's the month of April.
The whole month. So May
Right.
1st, you no longer can use a blower.
Right. Correct. So the assumption here is that you have the month of April to do spring cleanup. And then you have 2 months in the fall to clear up your leaves. And of course, we did put in, at your recommendation, Trustee Finelli, the exception for storm and hurricane cleanup, which was quite prescient of you, because the next day we had Tropical Storm Isaias. And we had to do just that to the current executive ban.
And that allowed for gas blowers as well as electric, any type of blower.
That would temporarily suspend the provisions of this law. So during the phase-in period where gas powered is still allowed, then it would mean both. But once gas powered is completely phased out, which is January 1, 2022, it would mean electric blowers only.
All right, so my issue was the 4/1 start date. I mean, I know this year the gardeners came around in mid-March. And now whether that was just because it was a beautiful winter, or is that something maybe we want to address? Because I just have a hard time believing we're just going to let all these leaves pile up for a few weeks because we don't want to start till April, in my opinion. And the other issue I have is the start date for 10/15. I mean, I've got a pile of leaves out in front of my house now, and I'm just in the middle of September. And I'm
Well,
just
that's
wondering
when
if
our current ban
Yep.
allows leaf blowers to start up October 15th. Now that's the way our law's been for several years.
But I've been hearing quite a few leaf blowers around the community, and I'm wondering if we just want to sort of address that.
Well, that's because people are not complying
Understood.
with the current ban.
I understand that completely.
Yeah.
Now, I know that noise was an issue for early on, and most people have their windows closed in March. So that would certainly help us if we started a little earlier, as far as I'm concerned. And I'm in favor of that because I know noise becomes a big issue come spring. Everybody wants to get that spring air into the home.
Right.
So I'm in favor of maybe pushing this back 2 weeks to March 15th, my opinion. And additionally, I wouldn't mind starting a little earlier in October, even a week earlier. But I would rather see it 2 weeks earlier, but I know that's going to be a little pushback from some people. And maybe we take a week off the other end, because most gardeners stop December 1st.
I just want to point out that the dates that we did end up going with, the result is that's what we were advised by our own DPW is when.
You froze up.
Nope.
You know, they feel the first, and that they felt that the fall window, because we did ask them, you know, how they felt about, you know, what time period was the most reasonable. And that was what they came back to us with. So I kind of feel like, you know, it's best if we take their advice. And, you know, there's no reason why if we do this and we decide, you know, maybe November 1st to January 1st is a better window, or October 1st to December 1st is a better window, that we can't, you know, amend the law if we find that it's not really working, or DPW changes their mind, is the reason why we should modify the dates and, you know, see how it goes with what they've suggested.
I understand that. Well, just driving around the community, I'm seeing, you know, leaves starting to develop, and you know, me waiting another month till they get picked up doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And especially with the noise, I have no problem going March 15th, and I don't know why we just can't get the blowers out there and get started earlier. Especially if we're going to have the same kind of, you know, we don't know what we have in store, but what a pleasure it was to kind of get your yard cleaned up, whether you did it with a rake or a blower, and just to get it out there. So what am I saying? What I'm really saying is that we should go for the March 15th through May 1st, and then we should do maybe October 7th through 12/7.
Well, I'll jump in. I would love to incentivize people to use a rake in March to clean up early. I think one of the main reasons that we went with April for two reasons, as far as I remember. One was that we asked for feedback from the DPW in terms of when do they do their park cleanup, et cetera, et cetera. But I think also it was brought to our attention by one of the environmentalists who was presented at some point that disturbing the leaf litter and the beds in March comes at a very difficult time period where you're going to damage insects. And we're talking about beneficial insects. We're not talking about mosquitoes and ticks. We're talking about beneficial insects, which all sort of goes again to the idea that you can't have a healthy world if you don't have the bottom of the food chain. So I think that was the reasoning behind that. And October 15th is just because that's what we already have in the code, and it seems to have worked fine. So I don't anticipate an issue on that end. I mean, if we pass it and we find that there really is an issue with April 1st and that really we need March 15 to April 15 instead, we can make that change. But
I support that.
I think based on, the feedback we've gotten so far, it seems like April makes the most sense. I don't know that we want to have an expansive spring cleanup period. Basically, it's one visit to each property in the course of 4 weeks, 5 days a week. I think that probably can get done.
Understood.
Yeah.
And I
My only concern was, I know that. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, Bubba.
No, I'm going to just say that the windows are down, the leaves have fallen, cleanups are happening earlier and earlier. I mean, this year, I felt like they were coming around the first week of March, and to make it April, that's just a long time. And I will tell you, I was in Constitution Park the other day, and they were cleaning up, and they did a great job. But there was this one poor gardener that was stuck with a little push broom, a little sweep broom, and it took him forever to clean the sidewalk inside the park. And I watched him for half hour. And all he did was just kind of get whatever was on that path gently 6-8 inches onto the lawn, which a little gust of wind is going to blow that all right back onto where it was. And I'm just hoping that, by banning all of this, and I'm up for going electric, but I just feel like we're not kind of creating enough oomph sometimes with the whole process of the cleanup.
I guess, but you kind of have to balance it may not be convenient if you have to wait till April, but at the same time, when you compare that against the negative impact that we're creating on the environment, on people's health, on the pollinators, you take all of that into consideration, it's worth the inconvenience, I think, at the end of the day.
Understood.
And
that's my
frankly, our
point.
grass clippings should stay on the lawn because they provide nutrition for the grass. So once they're swept back onto the lawn, hopefully they settle down and they decompose.
Uh-huh.
And I think a lot of people have forgotten their broom technique. So we all have to be reminded of how to use simple tools. For sure. I don't see any, we have a hand raised. Rob, can you open Luis Perez?
Yes, to unmute herself.
He has to unmute her. Hi, Luis.
Hi, good evening, Mayor and trustees. And to Peter's point, I agree with him. I think from what I've observed, there seem to be leaves falling earlier this year, but it could be because the climate is changing, who knows? But I kind of agree that we should leave it to the DPW to and follow their lead. And if we can revisit it again in another year to see, how things play out, maybe we could. I think we have to get used to, not having totally immaculate yards 100% of the time. A few leaves here and there aren't going to make Larchmont that much less beautiful. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Mayor,
Yes,
Mayor, I've gotten an email from Marlene who
but she
is
can't
going-
raise her hand. Rob,
Yeah.
can you turn on, unmute Marlene Colbert? She might be on there as Gerald Colbert. Yeah. Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Marlene, we hear
Yes,
you.
Marlene.
Well, I just wanted to say that I think one of the things about the change in the time and why you have to go with the DPW is I don't even think that the sanitation department picked, have you ever noticed that in March, the bags sit there until the April 1st because the town doesn't collect them until, so that's one of the things you have to consider. We'd all maybe like to have our yards cleaned in March, but then they don't pick it up. So it just sits there for a month outside. So I think that if you ever adjust the schedule, you have to deal with the whole collection situation. And I think the leaves are falling earlier this year because of the storm, because mostly they're not coming down till November. I mean, I think it's the opposite. They're rather than starting in October.
Especially if you live near the water because of the salt damage from
Right.
the high winds and spray.
So I think this is a crazy year, but I think you should go with what the DPW said. But I really wanted to congratulate you for coming to this point and helping, this is really one very small step in a huge environmental issue, which is going to face our children and grandchildren. I won't be here to see the devastation, but it terrifies my kids. My grandchildren are in their 20s and they're terrified. And I think Larchmont, if we can take this one tiny step, I mean, really, people are so selfish in some ways about, my every blade of grass. We just all have to be a little bit, we have to be open to the change because this is really a huge problem facing our world and our kids. I mean, it's not us, it's the next generations that are going to come after us. And I think we have an obligation. So thank you for taking us to this far. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks,
For
Marlene.
some reason, this is not responding. I don't understand what's happening. But
Yeah,
thanks.
technology, eh?
Right, exactly.
I'd like to just add to that. There are so many reasons to do this, but the reason that really drives me is leaving habitat in place for bugs and critters seasonally, both at the end of the season, at the beginning of the season. We have had what some are calling insect extinction, bug apocalypse, you name it. We absolutely have to just stop expecting that our properties are going to be clean and bald and without a blade of grass. That's just not how we need to manage our properties. That is changing. It's changing slowly. And as Marlene said, if we could just take one step to facilitate that change, that would be terrific.
Yeah.
So
it's all part of respecting the beauty of Mother Nature. So respect, the beauty of your lawn and your trees and your flowers, but you have to also, take the whole package.
And once people take these actions collectively, meaning less disturbance in the spring and the fall, more pollinator attracting plants, more natives, they'll see immediately a change in the fauna around their yards, and that's a good thing.
So I think since we have no more, we have Lisa McDonald wants to speak now.
Sure. Hi. I actually have a comment that's not related to the environment, but often I hear comments about the landscapers and how this is a burden for them. And it will be an adjustment, but I actually think that this is really a social justice issue on their behalf. And I think that there's so much compelling science that shows that this is damaging to their ears, that operating this machinery puts them in such close contact with dangerous particulates and carcinogenic fumes, that I really think that this is something that is Once you know that science, it's almost immoral to ask them to continue to do something that is not a necessary job and that puts their health, their long-term health at such risk. And, you know, I know we've pointed to the lead paint analogy, and I think that that is a good one, is that when you know that something is a toxic substance and you continue to put people in contact with it, that it's just really not, it's not acceptable. So thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. If we have no more comments, welcome back, Sarah. Sarah's got a bad
Sorry.
connection, so sometimes she falls off. But she's
My
back.
children came home and they started using the internet, so I had to tell them all to get off.
Okay. Good.
I'm okay now.
So we have no more comments as far as I can see from the people attending the meeting. So I would then move to close the public hearing and then take a vote. So I seek a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Bye.
And now I seek a motion to approve the local law regulating the use of leaf blowers in the village of Larchmont. And I don't remember what local law number this is going to be. Jim, I don't really need to know that right now. Thank you. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Are there any nays?
Bye.
Okay, unanimous. Thank you very much. Very exciting. We're going
Very
to
exciting.
we're gonna make news. We're gonna lead the way on this
Mayor,
issue.
just one operational point.
Yes, ma'am.
When we do have a storm and there's an exception, could I recommend that at some point when the period is over, that perhaps a robocall goes out to remind people that the law is now been reactivated?
Yeah.
There was a little confusion after the last storm.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. That should definitely be
Mayor
the
Walsh?
case. Yes.
Can Kristen Anderson, she just wants to
Yes.
address the board
Rob, can you?
very quickly?
She's here. She's here. We've got her.
Hello.
Hi, Kristen.
Hi. Hello, everyone.
Hi, Kristen.
Hi. People in the audience, I'm Kristen Anderson. I'm here along with Lisa McDonald on behalf of the Larchmont Environmental Committee. And we would like to thank the Village of Larchmont Board of Trustees for passing the first complete ban on gas-powered leaf blowers in the Northeast of the country.
Wow.
Wow.
It's an important precedent.
Double wow.
Yes, thank you very much. This is an important precedent. You are ensuring better health and higher quality of life for our residents and our landscapers, and you are encouraging more sustainable property maintenance practices which protect our environment. We want to thank you all for your bold vote this evening and for continuing Larchmont's tradition of leadership in sustainability. Thank you so much.
And thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for all your work and leadership on this issue, Kristen, and to
Well,
the whole environmental committee.
And we look forward to working on the implementation of this code starting this fall.
I would just like to add that maybe the environmental committee could work on the generators next.
We'll put it on the
That's
list.
the big one.
Okay.
That's where
Yeah.
we want to go next. Thank you.
Yeah, that does have to be attended to, Bubba. So thanks for bringing that up and reminding us. That's definitely something we have to address.
Huge.
Mayor, this is Jim.
Yes.
And I wonder if, just as a piece of housekeeping, somebody could make a motion to determine that the enactment of this law a negative declaration that the enactment of this law will not have a significant adverse effect on the environment. We know it's quite the opposite, but would someone make that motion?
Will someone make that motion, please?
I make a motion that this law does not present an adverse effect on the environment.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Environmental Committee. Rob, can you please unmute Senator Mayer, who has joined us, and she's going to come on with us. Here she is.
Hello, Mayor Walsh. How are you and everybody?
I'm good. Hi, Senator. Thanks for joining us.
Should I jump right in?
You can jump right on in.
So I apologize for being late.
We just finished up, and maybe you didn't hear, but we just were the first community in the Northeast to pass a full gas-powered leaf blower ban.
It is fantastic. It's very thrilling. Good for you. Very exciting. Well, thank you for the invitation to come by and to speak briefly on a few issues that the mayor identified. And it's really my pleasure to be here. I want to talk first a little bit about the response to the storm, because it really had such a disproportionate impact, way beyond what it should have had. And the mayor and many others were on the phone every day with Con Ed. And frankly, their response was completely inadequate, in my opinion. And I look back at what I said when I testified at the Moreland Commission when I was in the Assembly after Sandy, and said the utilities were completely unprepared. And frankly, all these years later and all the work later, including the work done by David Buchwald and George and others, has not resulted in substantive changes in the way utility operates. And they are a monopoly, and we have no choice but to have them. So we had, after fighting with them every day and trying to coordinate the DPW crews everywhere, get answers on restoration times, all of the things that really our constituents collectively were entitled to know, it was clear to me that they had not ordered the folks in to do the work until after the storm. And it takes them a few days to get people from Alabama and Louisiana and all that. And they didn't get here really until Friday and Saturday. And that's because they've really hollowed out so much of their workforce in an effort, I think, to save money. And they don't have, they are what I would say cheap about ordering in new people until they are convinced the storm is going to be so large that they need them. So after our really difficult time with them and far too long of outages, we in the legislature, the Senate and the Assembly, insisted on a joint legislative hearing, which went about 15 hours. And Con Ed was there, as well as Altice, Cablevision, and Verizon, both of which were even worse than Con Ed, in my humble opinion, in recognizing that internet, more than cable and phone, but internet was an essential part of people working at home during this pandemic. The world has changed. People actually lost money because they couldn't work. They were not prepared to talk to us every day and tell us when power would be restored. They were not cooperating with Con Ed about lines that were down in a way that was as good as they should. And frankly, I had to call the lobbyist for Altice and say that if you don't start having a call with us every day, I think that your franchise is going to be in jeopardy. And then we ultimately got a ridiculous call. I think you were on the Ms.
Yes, I was.
And that was, they really didn't know how to handle it. So I have put in a very strong package of bills, as many of my colleagues have. But one is mine first imposes for Con Ed strict liability on senior management. So they can't say it wasn't, no, we didn't know, we didn't follow our plan. We didn't know it was going to be that bad a storm. For the senior management who make, I went back and looked how much they make. They make a lot of money, way more then their conduct in this storm was justified, in my opinion. They would be held to a strict liability standard. There already is a negligence standard for senior management, but we would up it to a much higher level of strict liability. Second, the Public Service Commission, which testified at our hearing, which has oversight, and most of the appointees are by the governor, has been lax. I am proposing 2 additional members who are consumer advocates. The governor vetoed our bill for a separate consumer advocacy review of the Public Service Commission. I'm saying put 2 people on there that actually come from the communities that are served by these utilities. You don't have to be an expert in utilities. You have to be an expert in what it means to be a ratepayer who doesn't get the service they paid for. And that they should have much greater diversity on this Public Service Commission. And the third bill that I put in increases the penalties. You may have seen today the governor said that the legislature, I don't know where he got this, somehow has let them get away with these low penalties. Well, that was not since we have been in the majority, I would say. I'm proposing a 5-fold increase on the maximum penalty from 0.04% of their gross interstate operating revenue to 0.02% of their gross interstate operating revenue, because their failures to comply with their plan have been the cost of doing business, and we have to really make there an economic disincentive. And then on the issues of Altice and Verizon, it is more difficult from the state to regulate them because they are regulated by the FCC as internet providers. However, there are some hooks for the state to have greater regulatory authority, and particularly with Altice when it took over, when it merged with Cablevision, that required state approval. I am proposing a bill that would basically allow consumers to have much greater opportunity to get money back when there's either damage, loss of revenue, and also to require them to actually file their plans with the Public Service Commission. Hold them like a utility. Right now, the internet is the equivalent of a utility in my mind and should be treated as such. So my colleagues have put in a number of other bills, including allowing people to have a larger amount returned when there's damage to food and goods. So we're going to have a very robust package of bills, and really, I think, put our foot down that this cannot be repeated. And we don't want to forget until the next storm, which has been a problem before. I think there's a lot of energy and anger about the fact that this was poorly handled, and we're not going to put up with it again. And I heard from so many constituents, and I know all of you did who are elected as well, that it was really unacceptable. And the mayor and did a fantastic job of advocating for Larchmont, but really the whole Sound Shore got really slammed in this in many respects. So on the utilities, we're fighting back. General election reforms, well, I think you all know the governor both signed an executive order, but now a bill that was passed, sponsored by Senator Biaggi and signed, allows us all to apply for an absentee ballot on the basis of the possibility of COVID. I hope people understand we cannot have automatic absentee ballots under our law, although it would require a constitutional amendment to have vote by mail. We have passed it the first time. It has to pass 2 times in the legislature and then go to the people for the Constitution to be amended. But in the interim, we have passed a bill, which he signed, which allows everyone to apply for the absentee ballot, which hopefully people will do, as well as we made the changes that allow for early voting, which I think is going to be very important, continue to be a very good opportunity for people to vote without as much of a line, and we will have in-person voting. We've also made a number of other election law changes, including when absentee ballots are disqualified, providing notice to the voter so they can come in. For example, if somebody signed it, but they didn't sign across the little triangle there on the back of the envelope, but they signed it, maybe they were senior and they didn't get the exact right place, let them come in and attest under oath to what they did, and then the board can determine whether the ballot should be disqualified. But give the voter a chance to explain before the ballot is disqualified. In the city of New York, thousands of absentees were disqualified without a reason that we know of. So that's one of the other changes. We've made a number of other changes, obviously, to have automatic voter registration going forward. That's not now. That'll be when you go to Department of Motor Vehicles, Social Services, and other agencies. There will be an entry point as well as a signed verification that you are entitled to vote. Nobody who is not entitled, like not a citizen, if you proceed down that path, you are subject to being convicted of a felony. So we have created greater pathways for people to participate in voting. And no question, this year has been a tremendous challenge on that. But we are really trying to expand the opportunity for people to participate in the process, and at the same time be very mindful that we have to do it properly, learn from other states, and really make sure that people vote correctly, which generally is the case. I'm going to jump to police reform. I think I saw the chief there. Hi, Chief, how are you? Yes, I see you. As you know, we went back and we passed 10 very major pieces of legislation dealing with police issues generally after the George Floyd and much of the demonstrations. Some of the bills we passed, the police community was quite upset about. Others they supported. I think the biggest issue that we did was repealed 50A, which was a shielding of prior disciplinary records of police officers. They were previously theoretically subject to the Freedom of Information law, but as a practical matter, it was almost never that they could be disclosed because up to a judge to determine they were relevant. And basically the Court of Appeals had ruled that that does not apply in almost any circumstance. We did repeal it. At the same time, we built in some additional protections for private information, such as family, home address, into 50A, so that you can't get personal information, but you certainly could get the prior disciplinary record. There was a lot of outcry, I would say, from the police community. I have met with the Chiefs Association after we passed the bill on 2 occasions with Senator Harckham in order to ensure that we continue to have dialogue. We may not agree about all these things, but our relationship and our respect for the police department has to be at the top of the list. And I know for myself, I want to continue to have a very constructive relationship with all of our police. We also work with the police unions, and we've met with them twice to address concerns. That being said, I would just say that the outcry in our district to repeal 50A was the loudest of any issue that I've had in a very tangible way across the district, from every part of the district, and significantly from young voters, young people, I don't know if they're voters, young people who reached out to me. But we made a number of other changes. We made chokeholds unlawful under state law, subject to a criminal penalty. We created 2 new units in the Attorney General's office to basically collect data and oversee in a more uniform way state practices. We provided for the state police to have body cams. And so we did a significant amount of work. It was very challenging time and still remains so, obviously very heated, but I think there was a consensus that it was time to change a number of these practices, and the governor signed these bills. And, but as I said, I was last night in Tuckahoe. If there are things that we don't have right, and if there are things that we ought to address in amendments, that is the process of legislating. And I remain totally open to having those conversations with law enforcement, but at the same time, making sure that all voices are heard, including the voices of our very significant minority community. And which is not to criticize any department in Westchester. It's just to say that I believe statewide we should have, we should move to a higher standard, and that's what I think we tried to do. But we remain very open, and I personally am extremely open to continuing to work with our departments and to ensure that these changes are not seen as a wholesale critique of the police collectively or individually. So I just want to make that clear. On the state budget, that's probably the biggest heartache really for me personally right now. The state is projected to have a $12 billion gap as a result of COVID, loss of income tax revenue, loss of all tax revenue, and the incredible decline in the New York State economy. Our unemployment rate in July in Westchester was over 14%. And that probably does not include our undocumented community, which has really been slammed by this economic downturn. Under the budget that we adopted at the end of March, the governor is authorized to make cuts up to 20% on a periodic basis. If he calls them a cut, the legislature comes back and we have 10 days to sort of argue with him, not about how much the cut is, but where he makes it. So far, he hasn't called it a cut. He's just withheld the money. I think he's reluctant to call it a cut because he doesn't want us to come back and have a fight with him about how he's choosing to do it. So he's withholding the money. The areas where I am of greatest concern as the chair of education, he has threatened a 20% withhold of the foundation aid payment that is due at the end of September. That is one of the biggest payments to schools made during the year. We are trying to persuade him that he ought not to make this cut now. We have been trying to push for the federal government, particularly the Senate and the president, to help us, but we're in such a partisan environment. I personally think it's unlikely that's going to get done, and that we have to wait until after the election and then sort of rethink our strategy. In the meanwhile, I don't think our schools can survive a cut and a layoff on top of what parents are going through right now. So I am pressing for a delay in cuts. That being said, the village of Larchmont gets $72,949 in AIM, same amount every year. Not that we haven't fought for more. All of AIM is subject to the 20% withholding. Some of it has been withheld in prior payments made earlier. Every other kind of payment that the state makes, whether it's to social service agencies, whether it's to not-for-profits that perform services that the state contracts, even for last year's contracts that are due last year, they're withholding 20%. So there's nothing but pain all around in finding a way to deal with the state's fiscal challenge. I think myself and many of my colleagues are willing to put some ideas on the table if we do go back. There are some ideas on taxing high income earners. I have a bill to tax those that earn $5 million or more for 2 years just for education purposes. Other of my colleagues have other bills, and I'm not a fan of increased taxation. I don't think we can really survive it very well. I happen to be a fan of increased casino gaming. I hate to say this, I'm not a gambler, but if Yonkers and Resorts World in Queens were full casinos when the economy comes back, and even before, it is a way for the state to make revenue that is not tax revenue and would greatly help our state. There's a number of other ideas, including increased borrowing, which the governor has been reluctant to do, but we are pushing for it. So I know I've done a lot, but we are fighting. I am fighting right now to forestall additional cuts on the school side. I'd like to forestall cuts across the board, but the fact is that without tax revenue and given the decline in the New York City economy, the state is in a very terrible fiscal situation. And we really do need Washington to help us, whatever the partisanship is. Just as a patriotic thing, as we have stepped up for other states in distress, we really need all of our friends on both sides of the aisle to step up for New York. But I'm just concerned, given the moment we're in, it's not realistic to sit here and wait and say that we can cut and wait for them to help us out. I think we should not cut, and I'm going to continue to make my voice heard on that. And I know in every village, we're dependent on these revenues, whether it's sales tax, every other form of tax that comes back to the villages. The challenges that we have at the county, state, and local level on providing necessary services and avoiding layoffs really weigh heavy on all of us. And I'm very, very personally, very, very concerned about it. So I'll stop there, Madam Mayor. If there's questions, I'm happy to answer.
I have a quick
Okay.
question for you.
Go ahead.
How are you,
Trustee.
Shelley? Bubba Finelli.
Hi, Bubba.
So Altice and Verizon, I noticed
Yeah.
that they leave all of their dead wires on the line. So if the line goes down, they're going to snip it. They might coil it up. I think there needs to be a wire management program that you might want to mention to them, that it's unsightly and it's hazardous. One fell the other day, and there was a big wad of
Wire.
cable, a wire in the middle of the street with children around, and no one knows what it is, and it becomes sort of a little bit of an issue. But this, they just can't run out a new line. I get it, they're in a rush. Maybe we do something where they come back.
I totally agree. And we heard that during the storm. They left wires down in the middle of the streets all over the place. But I just would take you on one issue. We can't tell them. We have to legislate to them, because they are another fully driven by profit. And, I don't have anything against capitalism, but they have our power in their hands. And so we really have to legislate. And that's a challenge to do, because they have this preemption problem with the FCC. But we are trying to find a hook to get in there. And I would just say that they did not coordinate with Con Ed. They did not coordinate with local crews. And as a result, their communication was so lacking that, in fact, Verizon, we never got a restoration schedule. And Altice, they gave it to us, but it was not accurate. So, your point of wire management is a good one. I'll go look and see if I can add it to my bill, which hasn't been introduced. My other bills were introduced so far.
Thank you. We prior to this board meeting had a board work session for over an hour. The majority of that time spent discussing our first quarter actuals and our annual projection. So, right now we're in that same boat. We feel fairly confident because we were able to quickly change our budget right before adoption, knowing what was coming ahead, but still significant shortfalls in non-tax revenue items that we have no way of knowing at this point if and when they'll come back and to what extent. And clearly, I think that we, at the very least, should anticipate a reduction in our aim, if not the loss of the entire package.
I mean, I would say, Mayor, that the head of the division of the budget has said to me that, the goal is that at the end of the day, we will restore what we withhold. But I don't have faith in that. I agree with you. I think we have to presume a worst case scenario. And our challenge will also be next year's budget, because the state, even if the economy slowly comes back, if there's not a second go round, and I just would say this for us in the suburbs, we need the New York City economy to come back strong. And we need people to be willing to go and spend money and all those things. And the city has not moved quickly enough in that direction. And I'm very concerned that without high income earners making money and providing tax revenue, which is the biggest share of the state's income tax revenue, is these very high earners, some of whom live in our communities, we are going to continue to have problems. But I think you're right to be conservative about what the state can do. But that being said, I look forward to helping on any issues to intervene directly with the governor's office, the division of the budget, or anyone else for Larchmont's needs.
I do want to thank you, because I believe you were instrumental in procuring a SAM grant for the Larchmont Library roof repair project. So
yes, your roof repair.
That certainly helps.
It takes 2 years to get the money out the door, so let's just be honest about that. It's
right.
Moving.
Right.
Hopefully we'll see a new roof. I'm definitely pushing.
We're going to see a new roof no matter what. Hopefully someone else pays for it.
Hopefully the state pays for it. Yes, exactly.
Right. Thank you very much. I really appreciate you coming on to update the community on all the work you've been doing for our benefit up in Albany. And
I just
don't know.
add one
Go
thing.
ahead.
Sorry, I realized, you know, we continue to have problems with unemployment. And we helped probably 700 people during the height of the pandemic. Even now, I have probably 5 unemployment claims a day that I send directly to the chief of staff of the commissioner. And these are, some of them are people since March or April that have not had their claims resolved. So please don't hesitate to let me know. We're very aggressive about these unemployment claims. And the extra 300 is supposed to flow after this Friday, which will help some people make it through. And particularly because people who thought they were going to go back to work and then got laid off, you know, later in the day, now are going to, without that $300, it's a significant loss of income for a lot of people.
How long, Senator, how long is that $300 going to be in place? Do we have a time frame for that?
They have committed to 3 weeks, and they are waiting to hear if they can get more weeks. It's federal money, so.
Yeah, okay.
Any other questions? No?
No, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
The next item on our agenda is the report from the police chief. Chief Polway, you're up.
Good evening.
Good evening.
First item of my report deals once again with car thefts and larcenies. And these are statistics derived from the district attorney's office. The number of reported car thefts across Westchester County has increased by 60% this year, according to data released by District Attorney Anthony Scarpino. As of August 31st, a total of 540 car thefts were reported in the county. In comparison, 519 vehicles were stolen in 2019. In some suburbs, the percentage of stolen vehicles is much higher. As an example, Scarsdale saw a 2,000% increase in car thefts this year from last, with a total of 21 cars taken compared to just 1 last year. DA Scarpino referenced the pandemic aiding in the increased number of thefts and urged residents to be more careful, and he said these were crimes of opportunities. Outside of Westchester's 4 biggest cities, Rye, Scarsdale, Harrison, North Castle, and Greenburgh had the greatest upticks in the number of thefts. Every municipality has reported at least 1 theft or related incident. Some cars are stolen by groups of professional thieves from New Jersey who steal luxury cars and sell them overseas. The majority of the thefts, though, are carried out by teens and young people from Connecticut looking for cars that have been left unlocked with a fob or key left inside. DA Scarpino added that the thefts are bad enough, but these vehicles are being used to commit other crimes and endangering the lives of others. Some have been involved in police pursuits resulting in accidents. There have also been a spike in grab and go thefts. And the message here is clear. If you leave your car unlocked with the keys or valuables inside, you are potentially helping criminals and putting others in danger. So please lock your car, take your keys with you, and remove any valuables from your vehicle when it will be parked and unattended. The district attorney's auto theft unit and the Westchester Intelligence Center are continuing to assist the local police departments and the National Insurance Crime Bureau, as well as law enforcement partners in Connecticut. While we haven't had another car stolen, there have been additional larcenies from vehicles in the past 2 weeks. So again, let's lock our cars and keep the bad guys out of Larchmont. An item that I want to bring up quickly, which was an agenda item for, or a report item for April, which is the Autism Month, has to do with Project Lifesaver. And Project Lifesaver is a program designed to help individuals with Alzheimer's, autism, and other developmental disabilities who may wander or get lost. It is a partnership of Westchester Department of Mental Health, Department of Public Safety, and Westchester Jewish Community Services. The program uses state-of-the-art technology, employing wristband transmitters to locate lost children and adults, and is now being used in all 50 states and Canada. Individuals who are part of the Lifesaver program wear a personalized bracelet that emits a tracking signal. The bracelet is a 1-ounce battery-operated radio wrist transmitter that produces an automatic tracking signal every second, 24 hours a day. The signal can be tracked on the ground or in the air over several miles. The bracelet is water resistant and can be worn in the bath, shower, or pool, and is made out of a strong plastic material that is difficult to remove without the use of scissors. After caregivers call 911, their local police department will be dispatched to the area to begin the search for the missing person. Westchester County Police will also be dispatched to the search area with a mobile locator tracking system. As each bracelet has a unique radio frequency, the search team is able to positively locate and identify the missing person, reducing search times from hours and days to minutes. To be eligible for Project Lifesaver as a senior, they must live in Westchester County, be dependent upon the person they live with, and have a tendency to wander. And there is no cost for adults and seniors. Children and young adults who are eligible for Project Lifesaver through the Westchester County Initiative must have a diagnosis of autism or other developmental disorder, have a history of wandering, and live in a community with a primary caregiver who provides daily ongoing care and resides in Westchester County. Adults and seniors can receive the service at no cost, but the families of children and young adults will have to pay a $325 fee for the first year of usage and an $85 fee every year after, and financial assistance is available. Project Lifesaver is administered by the Westchester Jewish Community Services, and their trained staff will work cooperatively to ensure that a child's bracelet is safe and effective. And they're available to answer any questions or discuss any concerns. And additional information can be obtained by visiting the county website at westchestercounty.gov. So again, just briefly, we do have a number of people who have Alzheimer's, and we do have autistic people in the village. And sometimes they have a tendency to wander. So this is a wonderful program that can be used to keep them safe. Speaking of safety, yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to remind everyone that it's election day, and Administrator Dottino and Attorney Jim Stout need to leave in about 10 minutes to go close the polls, count the votes, etc. So if we can move ourselves along a little bit, and I'm going to jump ahead in the schedule to the administrator's report, so he'll be able to leave.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, we actually had a pretty busy election day. I think we had over 200 in-person voters the last time I was across the street. So we may have a little work to do to tally everything up.
Very nice.
So no report, but I do have 3 resolutions on the agenda tonight, if I can jump right into those.
Please do.
The first one pertains to a capital fund transfer. When we have cash that moves from the general fund to the capital fund, we're allowed by resolution to transfer that from one project to the other. Basically, as a result of the reductions we did is our post-COVID tentative budget, we significantly reduced our cash contribution to our paving program, and in turn would rely heavily upon whatever we receive from Con Edison or whatever we receive from the New York State CHIPS program. But there is some money there left, and what the proposal here is to transfer money from the road paving line to the Constitution Park line in order to complete the sidewalk across the entire frontage of the park. And the thought there being that with the parks nearing completion, a significant uptick in traffic and attention that's going to be drawn by that work, the sidewalk in its current condition was borderline unsafe. So at the time we had the crews mobilized, we negotiated a change order with the contractor so that we actually got a square foot price less than what we bid 2 years ago with our current contractor, which is a pretty good price of $15 a square foot. So the resolution is a request that the board approve a transfer of $25,000 within the capital fund account as identified on the resolution.
Are there any questions from the board? I think this is fairly straightforward. So I seek a motion to approve the resolution.
So moved.
Do you have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you. The second item pertains to our smallest of the four collective bargaining units or bargaining groups, so to speak, our civil service employees. At present time, we have 7 members, 7 employees that are covered by that membership. About half are within the general fund and the other half are in the water fund. That small group has been a critical group in getting us through the COVID crisis. And quite frankly, those in the water fund and the water department maybe have worked a little bit harder with everyone being home. We've seen an uptick in water sales and water consumption and alike. Not the reason for this settlement, but just to give the group a flavor of who's in this bargaining unit. Their CBA expired May 31 of this current year, 2020. And being the dynamics that we are at right now, we found it, myself, along with the labor attorney, found it favorable to try and negotiate a very, very basic agreement that on itself would help with morale. And quite frankly, the basis of this agreement, the terms of this CBA or this MOA would actually be more expensive had we had a long drawn out negotiation process. So before the board is basically a 2-year rollover with our CSEA group that includes a 1.75% raise for each of the 2 years. And again, the budget impact is very small. Half of that impact will be absorbed in the water fund and the other half in the general fund. And just by way of note, the 1.75 is in line with what the comparable group, the Public Works group, is getting because they are under contract for this year. Again, if there's any questions for the board, but this was approved by the CSEA membership, and this was seen by Vince Toomey, our labor counsel, who agreed that this was a good opportunity for both groups.
Are there any questions? We before it was approved by the CSEA, we had already previously discussed the potential terms. So our lack of questions is not lack of interest. So I seek a motion to approve the MOA with the CSEA. Carol, you're muted.
So moved.
Do I have a second? Do I have a second?
Second.
Go ahead, Malcolm gets a second.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, last up.
Last up, this pertains to additional parking in the Palmer Avenue Business District. The village had an opportunity, I guess, Mayor, over 25 years ago to develop parking on a parcel owned by MTA on North Avenue. And as it turns out, the mayor discovered this what did I call it in the resolution? The previously relinquished opportunity to develop that parking. And long story short, we discussed the potential, amongst the village staff and the village board. I went to the MTA to see if there was still interest in a similar arrangement as we have with the other 60 parking spaces we operate and maintain in proximity to the Larchmont commuter rail station. The MTA did have interest in that, and they would work with us on a lease amendment that would provide for that. And in order for this to move along, it's up to the village basically to make it happen. So the village is responsible for the engineering and the design of it and the ultimate construction. And it's expected that the MTA will, since it's their property, will allow us a 50% reimbursement through a 50% withholding of whatever parking fees, whether they be permits or an hourly rate on these new spaces, which we anticipate to be approximately 32 spaces on North Avenue between East and West Avenue. So it's a pretty good stretch, and we think it's a pretty feasible project. Our village consulting engineer has worked with me on both an RFP to solicit engineering firms that we believe will have the ability to get this project done and done quickly and done through the MTA's rigors and do it affordably for the village to be able to construct what really is, it works up to be a retaining wall and blacktop parking and some basic drainage. So we're hoping it's going to be a very basic project. We're hoping once we get the fence up on the on the right of way. And once all our work is on our side of the fence, so to speak, the cost of what's called a force account of having MTA safety people will be far reduced from what we may have seen, which may have been upwards of half the project. So we're working hard to get this as tightly wrapped up the construction management plan as we can. But in any event, at first we need to sign on an engineer to do the work. And we had 3 proposals back to the village as a result of the RFP, and a proposal from Provident Engineering, who we've previously done work with, who designed the Turtle Park intersection and performed some other consulting work for us through escrow, provided not only the most comprehensive response, but also the most favorable rate. The total price to get us from design to bid documents is $43,000. And the goal at this point would be to bring him on board, get him started right away through a professional services agreement that I would be the interface between the engineering group, Provident, and the MTA to make sure that this stayed on track. And we would be able to pay for this effort through the village's general fund engineering consulting line. So this is basically within budget. We do budget for consulting services annually. Sometimes we get a project like this, and sometimes we don't. If we don't spend that money, it would fall to fund balance. But this appears to be a very good use of the money. And it goes back to, as the mayor mentioned that term before, which I appreciate, the opportunity cost. 25 years ago, this project could have probably been done for maybe half or even less than half of what it's going to cost us now. And I think the same theory goes forward. If this is something we know the village is going to need into the future for the various businesses, restaurants, apartment dwellers, and et cetera, even commuters, this is something we need to get done despite the financial crisis we may be facing. So at that point, I'd be seeking a motion, or the mayor would, or someone would seek a motion to approve this professional services agreement in substantially the same form and allow myself to execute it.
Quick question for you.
Go ahead,
How long
Bubba.
is the lease with the MTA?
The lease was a 10-year with a 10-year extension, and that lease has expired, I believe, 2 or 3 years ago. At this point, we're on a holdover lease, so to speak, but the MTA has indicated that they had wished to come up with a boilerplate lease agreement to kind of unify all of their various agreements with all the various municipalities and stakeholders. That's not done yet, and the MTA lease team, just not to get too far into the weeds, but lost a big part of their team to another agency, so they're back at square one almost for that effort. But in the meantime, I've worked with the real estate division of the MTA, and they believe we can either do amendment to the existing agreement, which is basically a holdover, or just incorporate this with the intent into the new boilerplate agreement, which they expect to have forthcoming.
I just wanted to add my support for this. As someone who's worked on all of the parking issues with the village, this is a key parcel. This is something that can turn into an additional revenue stream, and even in a world where we do have some bit of a delta to plug later on in the year, this is a critical piece of work that we should take forward.
Now, this is only the engineering side, then there's going to be the cost to actually build this, correct?
Correct.
Do we have a rough
And
estimate
this
on what that
includes-
might be?
This includes the bid documents. This gets us right to awarding a contractor.
Right.
At this point, the delta on this project is the force account. It could be as high as 150,000. It could be as little as 50,000. That's going to be, believe it or not, the main swing. But we believe that the actual construction is somewhere between 300,000 and 400,000 between the mobilization, the clearing, the retaining wall, drainage, and blacktop. Again, it's an estimate based on our consulting engineer's work with the materials that he wishes to proceed with this project. And that's also provided that the MTA, after they have a chance to look at this design document and bid document, approve of the type of construction, the type of material, et cetera. So there's a lot of question here, but this will get us to an approved plan by the MTA, and this will get us bid documents that are solicited and reviewed by this firm.
For the work done by this engineer, in order to get to the point where we have approval from the full approval from Metro North, we need to go all the way through to bid doc, or is there a point in this at which we'll be able to get that from them?
There is a point in which we can hold back, and that if you look at the Benny's memo, The bid tabulation fee is $7,500. That's kind of our break point. The rest of the work leading up to that would be what the MTA wants to see. They'll want to see our means and methods of construction. They'll want to see the material. They want to see the full bid docs that someone would ultimately be bidding on to determine the price. But
Right.
that portion of it, if we don't get approval, or for some reason at that point the board does not want to proceed, there are break points in which we can get to a certain point and take a pause if we don't feel that we're going to be at a point to proceed with construction at any reasonable time, or if the MTA for some reason changes their mind or does not approve of the concept. But right now we've gone through a preliminary overview with them, and they've been supportive of everything up until this point. So I hope that won't change, because that'd be a drastic change from where we are today, but
Right.
that would be a savings.
Right.
And with the financial situation the way it is, we feel we're going to undertake this and even spend 43,000 for just to get the bid docs together.
Well, again, I went through the presentation today. I understand the concerns of the committee and the board. I believe that the treasurer and I have some alternatives to get through the crisis, or at least get us on the road for the board to make some decisions to get through the crisis. But this would not be on my first pass. Cutting the engineering services line in the village budget would not be on my first pass of cuts, maybe not even my second pass. So I believe that the opportunity of waiting on this may cost us more in the future. And again, this project has an opportunity to return revenue back to the village. So you can do some numbers to see how long it may take. But 30 spaces at, let's say, $10 a day over 5 days a week, et cetera, you can see where you may have some income back from.
But we're looking down the road a few years for that revenue to kick in. I'm just saying we're sort of in a crisis now about spending money.
Right.
We are, Bob, we are in a crisis right now, but I think that we need to be very careful not to jeopardize the long-term planning goals of the village for the short-term game. And there are definitely other places for us to look for those cuts to get us to the end of this year in a fiscally responsible way.
And we've missed opportunities before to really deal with our parking situation. This is an absolutely critical piece of making the situation in the Palmer Avenue district better.
Understood. I'm just concerned about the timing.
Absolutely.
Timing.
I mean, I'm with you. I'm
never
all up
good.
for parking. I'm all up for making money. But, this is not exactly, we're fluid.
There's
No,
other
but,
places to look.
Understood.
Yep. So I think that beyond authorizing you to execute this agreement, we also need to have a motion to authorize the treasurer to create a capital account for this project. And you'll, Treasurer Gutwein, you'll create capital project. We'll call it North Avenue Parking.
Yes.
Is that a good name?
Catchy.
So while we're here, you may want to do one more step of that resolution and authorize the transfer from
Yes,
the
that was
general fund account to be specified, the engineering consultant services line, in the amount of 43,700 to the capital account to be determined by the treasurer.
exactly.
I'm
So we'll
sorry.
creating a capital account for the North Avenue parking project.
Okay.
This is going to be and then we'll also authorize the transfer of the funds from the engineering general fund account into the capital account for this project. And this is going to be the first capital project that's going to be entered into the project management module of our accounting software. So we'll be able to test that on a relatively limited from the scope that there are probably only 2 or 3 vendors.
So is this are you moving budgeted money to capital, or are you taking from fund balance?
We're moving budgeted money from the engineering line
Okay.
to the capital for this project. And administer in the amount of $43,700.
So do we do a resolution?
I'm waiting for what's coming next out of Kimberly.
I'm not sure that you can do it that way between the two funds because one is under a budgetary basis. Well, they both are, I guess. I was wondering if the other way would be to move the money within the general fund to the cash to capital line, the transfer to capital, and then transfer the money over. That's the way to do it instead.
Fine. If that's the way to do it, that's the way we'll do it. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah. That's why you're the treasurer and I'm the mayor.
Also,
so-
on a positive note, if I might add, when we do go to borrow and Moody's interviews me, they will ask me for new revenue streams, and this would be good for us.
Yeah. It's down the road a little ways, but it's definitely on the horizon as soon as we start this work.
We're working.
So I seek a motion to have the treasurer set up the capital account and transfer the money as she has described in the amount of $43,700. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Are there any nays?
One nay.
One nay. Okay, so noted. I seek a motion to authorize the administrator to execute the professional services agreement with Provident for the amount of $43,700 for engineering documents related to the North Avenue parking project. Do I
So
have a
moved.
motion? Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any nays?
Abstain.
You need either an A and I or an A, I think. Abstain means you don't have enough
I'm in favor
information.
of moving the money. I'm in favor of the project, just the timing is,
Okay, so
so it does.
that's an I, with reservations.
Several.
We're all nervous, but some
Oh, it's done.
decisions we just have to move forward on. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. Administrator Dottino and I think Attorney Stout will be heading over to the Village Center to be running over to the Village Center to close the polls and come back with the election news for us to certify.
Sure thing. See everyone in about 15 or 20 minutes, I hope.
Count fast, please.
Okay.
Good
All
luck.
right. Bye. And thank all the poll workers for us, please. Okay, we're going to continue on so that when they come back, we hopefully will be at the conclusion of our meeting. So I'm going to turn it back to Chief Polway so he can finish his report.
Thank you, ma'am. I'll try to be brief in my remaining items. The next item is school safety. I would like to remind all residents and motorists that school is now in session for both public and private schools. As a result, I urge all drivers to please be careful in and around school zones for children walking to and from school. School zones are also designated speed zones, and the village speed limit decreases from 30 miles an hour to 20 miles an hour in these areas. Also be mindful and watch for stopped school buses loading and unloading children. The New York State Vehicle and Traffic Law requires vehicles to stop in both directions for school buses loading and unloading students. This year is obviously different from prior years due to the effects of the coronavirus pandemic. There will be additional crossings for students as a result, and they are as follows. Chatsworth Elementary School crossings will be from 8 to 9, 10:30 to 11:30, noon to 1, and 2:30 to 3:30. French American School crossings will be 7:30 to 9, 2:30 to 3:30, and on Wednesdays, 12:15 to 1 o'clock. While police officers will be patrolling school zones for safety and driving violations, we ask everyone to please slow down and be patient to ensure the well-being of all our students this school year. Speaking of school, I recently had the pleasure of being interviewed by two Mamaroneck High School sophomores on different occasions as part of their OCRA course. OCRA stands for Original Civics Research and Action. This class assists students in becoming civic entrepreneurs and teaches them how to take action and improve their community through positive efforts. Each student was tasked with interviewing 5 community stakeholders and asking them a series of questions so they could gain a better understanding of their role in the community and how their actions impact the public. The 2 students who interviewed me were Leah Barry Thuez, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, and Reese Moskowitz. And I wish them the best of luck for their upcoming school year. Social distancing, just wanted to take a moment and remind everyone that we are still contending with the coronavirus and that physical distancing is important. Crowds amplify the spread of the virus, so please keep a proper distance in any situation when you're out in public. Also, amid the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic, all people in New York are required to wear a mask covering when out in public and in situations where social distancing cannot be maintained. And finally, see something, say something. I'd like to remind everyone to stay vigilant in reporting any suspicious activity that may be observed. If you observe anything that may be suspicious, do not keep it to yourself. Please call the 24-hour New York State Terrorism Tips Line at 866-SAFE-NYS, or immediately call the Larchmont Police Department at 914-834-1000, or simply dial 911. And this concludes my report for the evening. I would be happy to answer any questions if you had them.
If I just have a quick question on the car thefts, how many cars have been stolen in the village?
So
in the last few months.
2 within the time frame that we're talking about, and we've had about 10 that were broken into with various items that were removed. In every single instance, they were all unlocked, and that seems to be the key here. The groups that are coming in from Connecticut are younger, and they're looking for an easy target. So again, the DA urges everybody to lock their vehicles, remove any valuables, and this way, if they're not successful in Larchmont, they'll move to another area. So far we've been fairly successful in patrolling the streets at night and keeping this type of crime relatively low. And we want to keep that moving forward. So please, again, just simply lock your car, don't leave the key or fob in it, and remove any valuables, especially ones that could be in sight and entice somebody to come into your vehicle.
Are these generally taking place in residential driveways at night?
They are, and that's the key, really. At night, they're coming in, they're looking for quiet places. In many instances, they're being dropped off, groups are being dropped off, and they're simply checking each car as they go along. So if it's quiet, but again, if you hear anything or see anything, please don't approach anybody. We urge you to call the police department as soon as possible and let us investigate and see what's going on. But yes, primarily it's all in residential areas at this point.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, we have a report from Chief Caparelli of the Fire Department.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
The Larchmont Fire Department's newest career firefighters, John Pilla and Michael Murnane, are both in their 3rd week of an 18-week fire academy. They're progressing well, making friendships and learning skills that will last them a lifetime. We look forward to having them back to begin their career in Larchmont, serving their residents this December. Fire Prevention Week for 2020 is the week of October 4th to the 10th. This year's theme is cooking fires and fire safety in the kitchen. Although we will not be going to schools nor having fire prevention talks in the firehouse as usual because of COVID-19, the residents can still observe Fire Prevention Week by going to www.firepreventionweek.org to serve up fire safety in the kitchen with safety messages, games and apps, videos, and items to purchase. Remember, fire safety starts in the home, so practice fire safety, have a working smoke detector and carbon monoxide detector, have an emergency escape plan to reduce property damage and keep your family safe. Now that the cold weather is approaching us, I urge residents to have their heating systems and fireplaces checked for proper operation before turning them on for the first time this season. Have a working smoke detector and carbon monoxide detector, as well as a working fire extinguisher in the home. Place fireplace ash in a metal container at least 10 feet from any combustibles, and never leave fires, even outdoor fire pits, unattended. Switching to code enforcement, I have been continuing to monitor the compliance of the New York State COVID-19 guidance for outdoor dining and following up on notifications of non-compliance, which there have only been a few. Now with the weather changing, increased indoor dining will make compliance even more important to keep us all safe and ensure continued operation of our restaurants in the business district. Please wear a mask, stay 6 feet apart, and protect your neighbors by protecting yourself. All apparatus are in service and all equipment is operational. And that is the end of my report. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Chief. You remind me that I wanted to remind all parents of school-age children that when their kids come into the downtown after school, and they go to our shops and our restaurants to get snacks, which is a great thing. Love to see them. They need to wear masks when they're hanging out on the sidewalk and when they go into, say, the deli or wherever to get their food. And when they come out to enjoy whatever they have purchased, they need to be seated. They can't take off their masks and hang around in groups of 15 on the sidewalk that other residents need to walk through. I know it's difficult. I know it's hard, but if they can just remind them of those rules and the reasons for them, okay? Because they could very well be asymptomatic carriers, and we want to try to continue the success we've had, be able to continue to open up more and get a little bit more back to our old normal life as much as possible. And I want to also thank both chiefs and the fire department and police department and also the volunteer ambulance corps for helping plan and attend our small but powerful memorial service for the 9/11 victims. So thank you both for that.
You're welcome.
You're welcome.
Does anyone have any questions for Chief Caparelli?
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So next up, well, the attorney, I don't think he had a report, but he's off counting votes or overseeing the count of votes. So next up on our agenda is a report from the treasurer. Treasurer Gutwine is going to give us an update as to where we stand and what's going on in terms of the financial situation in the village. So go ahead.
Kimberly, you're on mute. You have to unmute.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and trustees. In regard to the audit status, the auditors will be in for preliminary work next week. The audit fieldwork will begin October 19th. Most of the small funds are reconciled, and we will be moving forward with the reconciliation of the capital fund and the final balance of the general fund with year-end adjusting journal entries. We're working on capital assets with an outside company. That's asset management that we use, and our OPEB audit is in process. In regards to revenue and expenditures for the first quarter, the general fund appropriations were 21.3 spent as of August 31st, 2020. The general fund interfund transfers were 100% allocated after the first quarter in September. We're monitoring revenue, and as of today, we are projecting a $1.2 million annual loss in revenue. The COVID impact to the revenue, the following accounts are expected not to meet budget, and that is field permits, summer camp, tennis permits, parking, fines, and clerk fees. The actual collection of village taxes through August 31st is 96.1%. And in regards to our COVID grant status, we had several meetings with FEMA and the application is in process. A portion of the expenses may not meet the FEMA guidelines and will have to be allocated to the general fund. However, they are not expected to be significant or material. FEMA did come out with some changes this week, and as of September 15th, they're only paying for cleaning of public buildings that are set up for emergency operation, and the application will be submitted at the end of the calendar year.
So I have a question about that statement. Is that going forward cleaning of public buildings?
That's going forward, yes.
Going forward, okay.
No, anything after September 15th.
And what does it mean to be set up for emergency operations? Does it count that we operate our police and fire department out of this building? We do everything out of this one building?
No, from the meeting, I took it more as like a healthcare facility or a place where they were doing the swabbings and so forth, but not anything with public safety.
Okay, thank you. That's good. And I just want the public out there, $1.2 million revenue shortfall is a very large number. Some portion of that is the remainder of property tax, which we expect to receive 100%, at least no later than March, when the tax lien sales are done for any outstanding taxes. We have already been discussing earlier this evening in work session, and will continue with the board, the administrator, the treasurer, and the village's finance and budget committee to look at options and ways that we can make changes to our capital expenses, to some operating lines, and maybe additional revenue opportunities as we move through the year. And we'll be discussing those on September 29th. No, November 2nd, sorry, November 2nd, those list of options, and then looking at the second quarter actuals in mid-December, and that will give us a better picture of where we are and what we need to do to adapt. So thank you very much, Treasurer.
Thank you, Mayor.
Next up, we have trustee reports. So I will start with Trustee Finelli.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to state that there is a lot of tennis going on in Flint Park. And if you want to play tennis, go to www.villageoflarchmont.org and have a look at the schedule. There's, you name it, there's all kinds of tennis going on. Adult tennis, beginners tennis, intermediate tennis, people that just want to play tennis, too long to list. Go on over there and see what's going on. If you want to be a volunteer firefighter, still looking for volunteers. We picked up another one this month. Thank you very much for that, those that have joined. And contact myself or just go to the firehouse. We're looking for young volunteers that might want to get out of the house. 914-403-2387. That's my cell. Use it, don't abuse it. And the last thing is I want to just thank LMC Media for their time and dedication at the 9/11 tribute. They did a great job getting it out immediately on Facebook and then reposting it again on their network. Thank you for that. That's it for me, Mayor. Thank you.
Trustee Fruman.
Nothing to report, Mayor.
Thank you. Trustee Bauer.
Nothing to report, Mayor.
And Trustee Herman.
Very quickly, I may lose power, but I did want to say the Parks and Trees group is looking to do a minimal amount of fall planting. We have 8 trees ready to go. They have been sited, and we also submitted a grant application to Tree City USA, the New York State Urban Forest.
So she is left. We submitted that grant application, and if we receive it, we'll be able to plant 2 meaningful native trees. I think there's an oak and a larch tree in the grant application because the beautiful large tree in front of Village Hall is getting on in age and has been losing branches every year since I've been here. And we're thinking we might want to get ahead of that situation. Next up, let's see, Trustees Administrative Report. Did the resolutions. Hear those persons who wish to address the board. So if there are persons here who are attendees and wish to address the board, please raise your hand. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry for my sidebar, but Trustee Herman had a power issue. She's going to be moving into my office Okay, no one here, no one has raised their hand, so I assume no one wishes to address the board. If you decide you want to address the board before we adjourn the meeting, just raise your hand, we'll get you in here. Next up, we have approval of the minutes of the meeting, regular board meeting of August 17th. So I seek a motion to approve those minutes.
So moved.
So moved for Bubba. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, thank you. All those in, hold on just a second. Look, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I'll wait for Carol. She's coming back in. Carol, can you approve the minutes? We need your aye.
Aye.
Carol says aye. Next up is the approval of the bills. I'm going to turn the screen over to Trustee Herman now.
Hi, everyone. I am in the mayor's office. We're nothing but not flexible for sure. First, I have the bills that have been paid ahead of the review of the Board of Trustees. I've examined those bills totaling $548,304.77. And they are for the period of 8/19 to 9/8/2020. I have found them to be in order, and I move that such payments be ratified. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great. Thanks for indulging me, but we're not finished yet.
Okay.
So I have reviewed all of the invoices associated with abstract journal number 15. They are in order. So I seek a motion for the payment of those invoices totaling $275,923.52. I need a
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you all. We're done.
Okay. Hello there. So if you joined us, I have a mask on because we're sitting less than 6 feet apart indoors. So we're finished with our agenda, approval of the bills. So what I'm going to do now is adjourn the meeting and we will reconvene probably in about 10 minutes or so when the administrator returns with the vote count. LMC TV, I don't know how you want to handle this. You want to go blank and then come back on with the stream when we. In the meantime, I seek a motion to adjourn the meeting until the return of the administrator with the election results at approximately 9:35. Do I have a motion? Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That was unanimous. Very good. We're adjourned. LMC, do we want to
Yeah, how's this going to work?
turn off the streaming?
You can just all turn off your cameras and your microphones and then just come back when you're ready.
Okay, everybody,
Maintain the link.
right, maintain the link. So turn off your video, mute yourselves. Treasurer Gutwine and the chiefs may leave the meeting. Your portion is concluded for this evening. So good night.
Good night.
Thanks for joining us.
Good night.
All right,
Nice job.
I'll text the rest of you when it's time to come back on.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
Rob, are you there?
Yes.
Hi. So we're getting a message that it could be another 15 to 20 minutes.
Okay.
Thanks a lot. Rob, we still don't have any results here. I'm trying to get some additional information.
Okay.
All right, thanks.
This is the long goodbye, huh?
It sure is.
Oh, goodness gracious.
But we've got some tunes on.
Oh, there you go. You're jamming in the office, huh?
Right.
There you go.
All right. Give it a few more minutes.
Yeah. Oh, boy.
Rob,
Yes.
we have a new attendee, phone number 914-217-0177. Can you please bring her on as a panelist?
Sure, talking is permitted. I actually can't make a phone call or a panelist, but they're able to speak.
Okay, thank you. Hello. You're muted right now. No, why not? Rob,
Yes.
that phone is muted. Do you need to unmute her?
She has to unmute herself.
Okay. We just got a call from Justin and it should be, they should be back here in about 5 minutes.
All right.
All right, thanks. Justin. You want to run down the hall and.
What's going on now?
Justin's back. He has the results. We're just waiting for him to bring them in to present. So everybody get ready.
Okay.
Oh, wait. Okay. Here he is. Yeah. So okay, everybody, time to rejoin the meeting. Malcolm? I think we lost Malcolm. Sarah? Was Sarah able to call in? She's not on there. Hold on, wait, maybe she is. No. We're just trying to get everybody back. I don't know what happened to Malcolm. Who? This is painful. Okay. Yeah. But, you know, I don't, Bubba's here. Yeah, we're good. Yeah, but Sarah is, sorry, people. Okay, we lost Malcolm. So Sarah's calling in. Rob, we should have a phone call in a second, if you can, when she's in, bring her in, and then we'll. Okay, we don't know quite what has happened to Malcolm. Sarah's going to be calling in. I adjourned. Do I have to reopen the meeting?
Yes.
Yeah, right?
We
That's
did
how
last time.
yeah, I seek a motion to reopen the meeting.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Great. So the results are in. And in the village election of September 15, 2020, we have Mayor Lorraine Walsh, 266 votes. Trustee 2A, Sarah Bauer, 250 votes. And Trustee 3A, Peter Finelli, 249 votes. We have 2 write-in votes. Greg Randolph received 1 vote, and Mike McEvely received 1 vote. And in the issue of the referendum to move the village election from March to November, yes, 252, no, 17. So the referendum passes. I thank you all very much for that. These are the results, and I seek a motion to, here's Sarah and Jim.
Always sunny in Jim's world.
Hello.
Hi, so I seek a motion to certify the results of the September 15 village election.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Great, thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Congratulations.
I think-
Congratulations, everybody, and thanks for what you do for the village.
Thank you.
Thank
I
you,
seek a
Jim.
motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you.
Take
All
care.
those in favor? Aye. Yay. See you
Bye.
later. Bye. Thank you, LMC. No, it was a late night.